Here. And if we have any questions, just let me know. I'm gonna go through. So many options with Zoom. 1 second. Let's see. I want to caption. Okay, so welcome back, right? We had the holiday off, so now you're actually transitioning from part of week 1 going into week 2. We still gonna have time to take care of the rest. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna work on our lab 1, because I'm trying to control 2 machines. All right, so hold on 1 second. So here's your lab. I did record. This is from prior year when I haven't taught 27 for like a year because someone else was teaching it. But when I taught it during COVID, at the end of COVID, they had come in and it was a hybrid course. So I have some recording and some of you followed it. So I'm gonna finish up with this lab. If you weren't here during the first week, you can start with part B. Okay, just follow the steps. It should be really easy. And if you get stuck, let me know. I'm going to pick up at part C for most of you who were here during the first week. And so I'm going to walk you through this, right? If you did it already, just follow along. I want to come back to assignment 1 when we're going to talk about, there was some discrepancy with the notes. We're going to address that. And then I am going to maybe have time talk about unit 2, because I know you can watch the video, but okay, so let's take a look at part C. Where we had left off were when we finished creating the virtual machine, we had logged back onto it. And so this is Ubuntu. This is a Debian family. So most of the time, I recommend that this should be a good Linux version for you to use. It's free. You can make virtual machine with almost all the OSs out there. There's some Apple releases that won't let you, but you can find some older ones. So you can use it to test different things. And the reason why I'm teaching you terminal is command line is very important, right? So command line, we use it to manage system, to do a lot of things. One of my students, my former students, I just talked to him today, and he was saying at UCI, they want him to run programs in command line. And, he didn't learn that here. And I said, he just didn't take my Java class, because if you took my Java class, you're going to have to run everything in command line. That's really how a lot of the administrators are using. So learning is important. How to use it is important. So in Linux and in Apple, terminal is what we use to interface with the system. And there are certain things that you can do in terminal that's outside of the graphical user interface, but definitely whatever you can click, you can use the commands. Okay, you just have to know how. All right, so what you're going to do is for 21, and we did this already, we talked about the kernel. So we're going to use uname-a. And so simply once I boot my virtual machine, I would do this, right? And the key thing is that you have to type your syntax properly. Okay. So uname-a, what this does is it shows you. Hi, how are you doing? Oh, okay. Uname-a allows you to look at the kernel, and what the kernel does is that it is 1 second. It gives you the information about the operating system, and it tells you exactly like the type it is. It tells me that it is a virtual box, right? This is the release. Now in security, that's really important because OS tells us a lot of things about the system. So right now, like when I teach threat intelligence, it's about finding areas that you can tap into to fix or to attack, right? So in security, There's the defender and there's the protector, right? It depends on which team you're playing on. So in our case, what we want to do is we want to be able to find out the operating system that we're using. And you can use scanner for that, right? But in Linux, you can use uname-a that allows you to look at the kernel, right? And there's some malware I talked about before that actually tap into kernel vulnerabilities. Sorry, let me stop sharing on this side and then let me share on this side. Okay, that's better. Because I'm like, ah. All right. So we already touched on the kernel, and it is a foundation of your operating system. This is to load into memory. So whenever that you load your OS, it will tell you, you know, how you are required to have certain amount of memory in order to run your software. Well, your operating system requires memory allocation. And in some malware, it stays in the memory, right? Kernel-based malware will do that. So this is a way that we can find kernel information, and think of kernel is the foundation of your house, right? It's a foundation of your operating system to be able to access the resources in the memory allocation, right? Next command line, and we touched on this last time, is dmesg, right? And this allows you to look at boot log, right? Who remembers why we should look at the boot? So when you boot Linux, Linux is very clear. It's going to tell you, you know, some things is not okay, something failed. If you have a driver or something that's malfunctioning at the firmware level, it's also going to tell you. Now, in Ubuntu, when you boot it at the beginning, it gives you a warning, right? There's an issue with the vulnerability, and that's important. So anything that deals with the boot of your boot sector, it's always good to look at the log for that. So what are we doing here? When you're using the sudo dmesg, this allows you to look at the errors at the startup, right? So let's say that I'm a user and I turn on my computer and I expect it to connect to the internet, but somehow my network interface card is not working, right? It should log something like that. Windows does that too. So it's always important for us to look at the log. A lot of malware also do startup, right? So you guys ever use Windows systems that's really slow to start, right? So how do you take care of that, right? You need to really look at what is starting when it boots. A lot of times it's hardware, sometimes it's not. It's the operating system's issue. Okay, so coming back here to my terminal, I would do super user do. This is how you elevate your privilege from your regular user to a higher privilege, like your root or your admin, right, in Linux, DESMG. Okay, and if we look at that, and then we're gonna point it to, or DMESG, and then point it to this, okay. And the arrow is just, we're gonna point it to the file, dmesg.log, and we wanna name it the same, okay. So in Linux and Windows operating system, you can find, you know, sometimes Windows, we need to look at different type of files, but you can often find the log file. And in security, this is very important. We study logs. Hi, what did they say? Oh, okay. Well, next time. I wish you let me know sooner. Okay, yeah, if they want, they can email me too. Let them know. All right, see ya. Okay, so since I elevated the privilege, it's gonna ask me for my authentication again, right? Whatever the password that you're using. Okay. So we did that already. Okay. So next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a cat command. Cat stand for concatenate. And what that does is whenever that you hear the term cat command in Linux, it allows you to be able to look at the files, the content of the file. This is how we can read it. Okay. So we can do a lot of different things, but in addition to that, we're going to use grep. And grep is going to be able to, we are going to be able to access the log file that we created in the previous step. So earlier, I told you guys about the pipe. When you use a pipe, what you're doing is instead of typing 2 lines for 2 command, you can put it all in one. So it's a separator between one command to the next. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we are going to, let me do this. So that way I don't have to flip back and forth. So we're going to do a cat dmesg.log, whatever your file name is, and we're going to pipe it to do a grep error. So we are searching for error in the log file, right? That's how you use grep. So you're looking through the content, and if you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to have to go line by line. Who wants to manually read 5,000 lines, right? And that's on a smaller system. On servers, that could go forever. Okay, so yeah.
So basically, you're just searching the entire log file for the word error.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, but so you telling it to search, but you didn't say what to output yet, right? So what you're gonna do is you have to, so for here, when you look at that, you're looking for a specific file name. Now, if I don't have anything output as error, right, it's not going to show anything there. But if you have a bunch of errors, it's going to show errors. So
if you wanted to find someone logging in, you put login or whatever.
Yeah, so specific things that would relate to the content.
So you probably use that again for something else that you want to find in the log, right?
That's right. Okay. All right. So now that's where we left off. If you don't see anything, right? If there's no error, like me, I don't see anything, right? It doesn't have anything. It's my clean OS have nothing. So just put that there was no error. Okay. But if you have a bunch of stuff that's showing up, right? You can see the type of errors that it's generated. Okay. So if you don't updates, you likely would see some errors. I push updates right when I first started the virtual machine. Linux, every time before you install anything, you always should update, right? Sudo apt get update. Okay. Any question? Right. Yes.
Sorry, so they're like, we're gonna get into like if there's like whatever situation's happening, there's a list of things you can do, like you search for errors, search for like an admin or user access, or if there's any unauthorized users trying to access it, and that's all in the log usually.
Yes.
Oh,
Well, but the log that we're looking at is the startup log.
okay.
So we're looking at error at startup,
That's
right?
Okay. But like we're gonna get into other logs.
Yeah, I don't want to spend a whole semester on logs, but we will use other tools.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So security is such a vast area that every week I'm going to try to tap into the concept. Okay. Now, for those of you who are trying to open your virtual machine, I'm sorry if I didn't mention this, but what you can do is on your drive, you should have a clone folder for those of you who created it last time, right? I don't have my drive with me, so I'm going to show you where your virtual machine exists. So there should be a folder called something with your initial CIS27 VM clone. The clone folder is a copy of your original folder. When you open it, there's a subfolder, and double click that. There should be a blue logo. Just double click the blue logo, and that's how you open your virtual machine. You can also use VirtualBox, click the add button and browse to that folder and find that VBox file. Okay. The orange is your drive that you created. All operating system needs some form of storage, right? So this is what you created, the 50 gig when we did the installation last time. Okay. So when we run the virtual machine, just do the .vbox file, double click that, and you should be in, and it should ask you for a password, right? If you didn't clone successfully, then you can redo step B, which takes 15 minutes less. Okay. And it's okay. right? If it fails, learn again. So see why it's broken, so that way you know how. Okay. So coming back here, we already talked about this. Next, we're going to look at lsmod. And this is going to load mod files within the kernel. So that allows you to look at driver files. Okay. In the area of malware in particular, they write programs to corrupt driver, right? Malware, in a lot of cases, it taps into not just confidentiality and integrity, but also availability. A lot of it is. That means that if it corrupts your file, then it's not going to be available for your system. So we are looking at specifically at the modified files that are related to driver. Who knows what a driver is? Some of you already know, because when I said driver earlier, you're like, yeah, that's right. What's a driver? So driver are software for specific hardware. Think of it like your hardware is a car and the software is the actual driver to drive the car. So in order for your microphone to work on Zoom, or for your mouse to work, or for your any hardware in general, you have to have that driver. Like if you built a gaming system and you install the coolest, right? Gabino knows the coolest video adapter that costs you almost $1,000 or more. You have to have the driver in order to maximize its capability. The OS is going to give you the generic driver. Just think about, like, if I have a car, a really cool car, right? Whether it's Tesla or Corvette, or in my case, I like 911 twin turbo, right? That's my dream car one day. But if you can have a generic driver, somebody that just go from A to B and they don't know how to drive the car to its maximum capability. But if you install the right driver, you might have like a person that drive the car at a high speed, a low speed, whatever, that's depending on the situation that you need it. Okay, so that's hopefully that analogy drive home. Okay, so we're gonna do an lsmod, and so we're gonna do a sudo lsmod. Again, when you're using the arrow, you're gonna point it to this log. So through this exercise, going back to his question earlier, we're creating these log files, right? By taking whatever that was already in the system and putting it to so that humans can read it. And this is going to be your job one day. They're going to go in there and they're going to say, find what's wrong with this. And you have to go and look at, create these log files. Okay. So we're going to do a sudo. Sorry. So when I teach Python for cybersecurity, Linux is my choice of OS because Python is made for Linux. So yeah. Oh, okay. So we're gonna do the sudo lsmod, and we're gonna point it to. I know some of you took Linux classes at RCC already, right? RCC has a series of it's not capturing my. So we created the log, and then we want to look at HDA. HDA stands for, who knows what HDA stands for? If you took my 27A, you should know this. Hint. HDD stands for hard drive. Thank you. So in Linux, thank you, 27A students. All right. HDA. So in Linux, it refers to the first drive, right, in the system. So what we can do is we can look at certain things for specific components, or could be hardware, right? So we are looking for the driver, especially for the actual storage drive. Okay. So you can find specific things. So in this example, what you're doing is you are going to cat it. So like before, we created the log. Now we need to read it, right? Cat lsmod. dot log, and then we are gonna grep HDA. So if we want to read it in general, you're gonna do a cat lsmod dot log. There we go, okay? So if we search and if there's nothing that relate to it, nothing shows, right? Because the computer is only gonna do what you tell it to do. But if we're looking at the log as a file, sometimes it's very long, then so maybe I can search for HID, I can search for, you know, whatever that you need, okay? So there are tons of things in here that, you know, so there's Intel, there's specific things, so we can grep for that, okay? So to read the file in general, we do a cat. Okay. All right. At this point, what you're gonna do is grab a drive, and then we just got started. So we are gonna screenshot, and I showed you guys this before, but I'm gonna do it again. The easiest, because Windows 11 changed the screenshot thing, you gotta click it like a camera. I use snip. So you search for snip and you click new, and then you pull it, you drag it like how you know, draw or whatever, right? And then you can paste it onto the document itself. So here's the picture, okay? And then I go in here, and under 29, I can give myself a line and then Control V, and I have a screenshot. You can size this down smaller. So a lot of these things that I put on assignments are for you. A year from now or next semester, you're gonna go back and say, oh yeah, I remember I kind of learned something in 27 where she talked about this, but let me go back and look at my assignment. So when you have your screenshot, you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like, okay? And then when you answer the question, you're like, oh yeah, I remember doing that. So a lot of the assignments and things I go over is because it's really for you, okay? All right. So now we're gonna practice one more with the log. So we are gonna do lsUSB. ls in Linux stands for list. Whenever you use a list command, what that does is giving you a list. It's exactly like that, right? And for those of you who learned Python already, list just is a container of things. So it's intended for you to have a list, a group of things listed or displayed. Okay. All right. So we are going to do, let me scroll this up and then put it here or here. Okay. So we are going to do sudo lsUSB, and we're going to point it to, right, lsUSB.log. And then we're going to cat it. And to repeat command arrow up, right, to forward a command arrow down. That means that if I want to redo the same thing, I arrow up. That just, you know, that way you don't have to type. And if you just came in, open up your drive, look for the clone folder, open up the subfolder and double click the blue icon. All right, so what kind of information is displayed here that's important for us, okay? So I know that the system has 3 USB. Why is USB loved and not loved in security? USB is great, right? You can configure things using, like, especially driver. I can download it on the USB, stick it in the system and install it. I can transfer file. It's convenient. Most devices work on USB 3.1x, right? But why don't we love USB in the security world? Why? Huh?
It's hard to police.
It's hard to police. Explain.
Anybody can walk into your system and just stick it in.
Right. So if I wanted to transfer a malware to you, I can plug it into I put it on the USB and run it real quick, right? Or if I want to capture your password, I can build a Trojan for keylogger, right? We'll talk about keylogger. In my Python class, I also let them create a keylogger in Python. A lot of these things you can write in scripts. So it tells me here that there are these 3 USBs. Okay, that's mostly for the root hub. That's for the generic 1.1, 2.0. That's how it works for your 2.0 USB, right? And then my virtual USB. And the bus, just a pathway that how, because USB stands for, thank you. Very good. You're studying for CompTIA A+, I see. Yeah, universal serial bus. Bus, anytime that you refer to that, just think of it like a pathway to transfer. All right. So what we're going to do is we are going to, after we read the log, okay, in Linux, we do not use inet or, IF config anymore. That's depreciated. Hi, what do you need? No, but the restroom is right on the right and there's paper towel there. They have some of the dry, it's dried right there. The wipes, there's no, it's not wet. But, okay. All right, so we are going to do IP address. In networking, this is our best friend, right? So IP address. Okay, so when you get an interview question, they're like, oh, you logged on to a Linux system. How do you find an IP address? So open up the terminal, right? Type in IP address. But I get a bunch of information there. So how do I know what is my system address? Okay. Look for the inet. But wait, this is a 127 address. So this is a loopback address. I think I talked about this in my video, right? This allows the system to see itself, okay? It identifies itself. So what happened is when you ping that address, it ping itself. It asks, am I connected? Okay, so that's what called a loopback address, okay? Now, when you look at the other inet down here, this is the actual address, okay? All right, and then also Linux shows you the broadcast. That means that it sends, that's an address that it used to send to all the system. And here's the version 6 scope. Here at this facility, oh yeah, there's an inet 6. So that's an IPv6 right there. Some company, they use both. Some company only uses 6. Question? Yeah. Yeah, right here. Whenever that you see, this is called a CIDR. So take CIS40A in the fall. You will leave that class knowing a lot more about IP addresses because I go over this. But yeah, this is a CIDR. Think of it like a shortened version of your zip code. Okay. So what it is it's gonna say, oh, this is part of this area, and then so this number, and then when you look at the inet, this one, see how it says 24. So I know that this is 255.255.255.0 because it's 24 bits. This is a 64-bit subnet mask. So if you took 26A and B, you should know that. But if you are in it now, yeah, go back and review. So this tells you that, but besides, so look for inet in Linux, okay? That's where your IP address is going to be. Okay, so now we can put that onto our log to see. IP address doesn't require sudo. You can use it as a regular user. And I want to point it to, I want to make sure that I have the right file name. IP address.log. And then I can cat it, right? And I would type it with the grep inet. We're filtering, okay? So see how you compare this, which is maybe like 15 lines. I can bring it down to 4 lines, right? It's a lot better when you grep, okay? Especially when you read things that are very long. Okay, any question? It should be CIS27. Did you use like a certain password?
I don't remember this variation of this password that I think that's the problem.
Maybe just recreate it. Yeah, new part B. It takes 10 minutes, I promise.
So can I just delete all of this stuff?
Just make it first and then delete. Okay. All right. So we already talked about this. We already talked about IP addresses. So put down your INET address. So there, I put down there's 4 that I found, right? You should have about 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your loopback. There's your scope for the host. There's version 4 IP. There's version 6 IP. Any question or concern? Do you have a question over there? No, we're good. Okay, let me know if you need help or get stuck. Yes. So this is a loop back. So anytime that you see the 127, it's a loop back. All system calls home. INET 6, this is your scope host. That's part of this guy right here. So your non-prefix route, this is your scope link. This is for your version 6. So this is my version 6 address and the version 4. Version 4 is an octet decimal. So you have 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits. That's 32. Where this is used hexadecimal value instead of decimal. Okay. Hi, how are you doing? Come on in. Were you here last time?
No, it's not first.
Okay. We log into Canvas, download lab 1.
Okay.
And you are going to start with part B. This is for backup later, okay?
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about file management in Linux. You have to also know your path. Okay. When we make a folder, we're gonna do, all right, first, let's do CD. CD stands for change directory. So if I want to move to desktop, I would do CD desktop. Now, Linux is case sensitive. Okay. So as you can see, I move into the folder this way. It's like clicking the folder and then going to the desktop. Okay. So pay attention to your path in all command line. Okay. So I am right now on step 35. So I just finished 34. I'm going to make a directory on my desktop called CIS27 by using mkdir. And this is the same in Windows as in Linux. CIS27. Now I need to open it up. So again, I'm going to be inside that folder by doing CD CIS27. See how my path changed in blue? So now I'm in desktop in CIS27. A lot of the issues with students who first use command line is that they're not paying attention to where they are. So ask yourself, am I supposed to be in that folder or directory, right? Linux, we call that directory, to look for my file. Okay. Now we're going to do a touch command. So once you're in the folder, we want to put something in the folder. We are going to touch, and there are many ways to make a file in Linux. Okay. You can append by using echo, right? So touch allows you to make, and these are like empty files. They have no text, right? Even though they're a text file. So you can make a bunch of files. You can have touch file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as long as you give it an extension. Okay. So go ahead and do that. One.txt space file2.txt. Okay. So how do I write to these files? So when you use the touch command, you have to do it 2 steps. First, you create a blank file, and then you would use a text editor to edit your file. Okay. When you use echo, you can automatically append whatever text into that file in one shot. So after we created empty file or blank files, we are going to install Nano. Nano don't come equipped. So we're going to do sudo apt-get install Nano. And Nano can be installed on your Mac OS, okay? But you can also use it on Linux. I love Nano. I sometimes write like 5-line script. You just install it, do everything in command line. You don't have to, go to an IDE. It's too much. Okay, so once it's installed, it should say that it's successfully installed. I'm here. And now I'm gonna edit this file and put some text in there. Okay. So using Nano, now my text editor, I'm gonna do file1.txt. So I open up the file in it, and this is what it looks like. So first you make the file. Now, I'm gonna tell you a trick. You don't even have to use touch. Once you install Nano, you just do Nano text file1.txt, it automatically creates it for you. That's just an extra step, okay? So if you wanna make like empty files, yeah, you can touch. But if you want to use Nano, you can use Nano to make the text file and it will do it without the extra touch step. So now in the editor, you notice in the editor, I'm going to go ahead and put in, this is test 1. Okay. Then Control X. And then it says, do you want to save this? Of course. Press Y. And then press Enter. I'm at step 40. Now we do the same thing for the second file. Nano file2.txt. Hello. This is test 2. Yeah.
I'm just Nano again. I'm on that step 38, but it just shows that it was installed.
Yeah, so you installed it, and then you just do this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when you Nano, it just, if you don't touch it, it's still created for you. Okay, you can Nano any type of file actually. So if I want to do Python, I can say Nano, myfile.py. You can create any file with any extension using Nano. Text editor can create any file. Okay, so once I repeat the step for 41, I'm going to do Control X. Yes for Y, and press Enter. And then to view, again, we're going to just cat it. So we see the text, see? Without leaving terminal. Cool. Okay, and then we see the file content for file 2. There we go. And boom, we're done. No, so screenshot here. So what we've learned so far is, yes, you can create log file, right? Depending on the type of log that you're looking at, whether it's boot, or when you're looking at mods or USB, right? You know now those little areas where you can create log files. But we can also create a text file using Nano or Touch. Nano allows you to edit and add text to it, where Touch just create the file. Okay. And Nano you have to install. And then we also learn how to make folder and move into the folder, or create directory and change directory.
Sorry, what was the difference between Nano and Touch?
So Touch creates file without the text edit. Nano is a text editor.
Oh,
Yeah, you can use it to write text to file. So Nano is equivalent for those of you who are using Windows, right? Notepad. Not WordPad, that's different. Notepad. Okay. Nano is also equivalent to text edit in Mac OS. Many of my students don't even know that existed, actually, because they use Word or some kind of word processing application. At the lowest level, that can be used to write any program, actually, text editor. Okay. All right, screenshot for 44. Now I'm going to show you how to use Echo, right? Echo is the same in Windows as it is in Linux. So we are going to do Echo. And this comes equipped. You're going to append text into the file in one shot. Put it in quotation mark. This is test 3. And you are going to point it to file3.txt. And then we cat it. Cat file3.txt. There we go. I love Echo that it appends text, right? So one line versus a tool and a line. Yes, ma'am.
I'm creating a file location size, it's supposed to be 50, right?
Yes.
And it won't allow me to. 50, it keeps it. No, when I made 50. This design is too small. So. Yeah, right here. We tried CIS27 with the exclamation point. This is. Okay. My phone is on. Which one is yours?
And you have to say that file. And then
you want these to be different, this is gonna, yeah, that's the best of how it's different. Otherwise, it's gonna. Okay, so here we go. So far, so once that's done.
I did. I knew what they were.
Other questions? Okay, so we talked about Echo being easy to use, right? And then you can do ls to list. We talked about this. So when you want to look at the content of a certain folder, remember I'm in my CIS27 folder and I have 3 files. You can also do this ls-space/l. Okay. This gives you the attribute of your files and the timestamp that when you created it. Okay. LSL is my other best friend when I need to list content. So this just gives you the file name. Think of this as like detail view in your folder in Windows. Okay. All right. So now you can answer the question, right? We should have 3 files by this time. So 3. Take a screenshot. So now what we're gonna do is we are gonna copy. Okay. So the key thing about copy in Linux is that when you create a copy, it creates a deep copy. That means that, you know, it takes whatever the content of the file and it's gonna put it over just like how you copy and paste in your regular graphical user interface. So we are gonna do a CP. This stands for copy. Okay. So we're gonna copy all of these files over to temp. So CP file1.txt space file2.txt space file3.txt, and we want to put it in TMP. If it's successful, if you have a typo, then it throws an error. Just check your command. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is it tells you to change the directory to this. So you have to simply do CD space/TMP. Right? We move from one folder to the other folder or one directory to another directory. And then we are going to do ls. Now, remember that temp stores a lot of other things, right? Outside of just our files. So you should see your files there. But then you have like system related stuff here. See how it says private, temp. So ls. And if you want to see more, you can do lsl. Okay. Then now what we're going to do is we are going to list the detail or the attribute for file 3. So ls space-l, that's an L, not 1 or I. File 3.txt. Oops. And here it tells me read, write. Who knows these Linux permissions here? Which one is which? Anyone took Linux class before? FSC students? Yeah, it's read, write, read, but what does it mean? Why is it read, write? It's the same. Why is there two listing of it? Thank you. Global, group, and individual user. See? Thank you very much. So what it's telling you is, think of it like, you know, you yourself belongs to your family, right? Your family belongs to the family tree, and that family tree belongs to, you know, that neighborhood or whatever, right? So world, group, user. Okay. Now, Linux permissions also can be numerical value, and LSL tells you the timestamp that when I created the file or modified the file. That's important for us because what are we checking there? When you're checking timestamp of a property of a file, what are you looking for in security? When was it last accessed? Possibly modified, so integrity. Okay? All right, owner, permission, and group permission. That's what I put right here. So in Windows, creator owner is the way that they refer to in Microsoft. In Linux, we just simply say owner. So owner means that, you know, you own that file. So you should have the full control of that file, which is read, write. In order to write, you have to read, right? Does that make sense? In order to save file, you have to see the file. So I put some information for you there, right? Give you a little bit more breakdown. So when you see execute, what would that look like? Some flags. All right, so this is also one of my favorite, chmod. And that allows you to modify the permission. So we talked about last time, permission pertain to an object. Files, folder, drive, right? Access control is about how the subject acts upon the object. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to change the permission for the group to read. So we are going to do chmod g equal r file3.txt. And then we want to remove the execute permission by doing chmod -a-x file2.txt. And now we want to list it again to see the change. So LSL file2.txt, LSL file3.txt. Screenshot. So right now, see how we remove the execute, right? We are left with just read for the file 3. Or actually we just have it only read. So you see that here. So file audit is one of the areas. Permission file audit is also very important. Okay, you can give certain people the access or not. And we always want to use least privilege. They don't need access if it's not necessary. Okay. And a quick way to do a shutdown is shutdown now, which gives you 0 seconds count. So always shut it down from the inside and then the outside. Okay. When you're finished, for those of you who learned this last time, right? What I want to do is I want to go back to VirtualBox. I'm going to right click and click clone. And then put it, you know, if it's you have it on your desktop, clone it to your desktop and then copy it into your drive. That's the best way. Okay, thank you. All right.
Yeah, I decided to.
Yes, question? Okay,
All right, so next we are gonna talk a little bit about more about concept. I wanna show you Ubuntu. Type in. Yeah, it doesn't like its own. So the way that we want it to be sure is to open up. It should say somewhere at the beginning that it's the box. Maybe some, it should be already, okay? So now you can put that in. I'll be right there, but this is just going back first. Yeah, you can add it to one document and upload it for your lab.
if you did it already, then that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it says.
So, when you copy the files, you can copy to input that, you know, change directions, so. you can. Okay, so you're gonna do CD space / TMP
Oh, see, space.
space,
Oh.
cause it's not understanding what you're trying to do CD
So,
combined.
so before you, it's,
Your intent, right? Oh, no, so here, 48, you copy to the 10. Yeah, you did. Okay,
Oh, I
now, yeah, 'cause when you did that, you point it to the 10.
oh,
Oh, you have to do a space. Space / 10. Up arrow key. Move, no, use your visual mouse and tell me. And then space. No, it says.
you know what? Oh, no.
Okay, great. Question? Goodness. You already have, yeah, so I think he's having a different one, it's already there. Yeah, but it's just like that. Yeah, so browse to your desktop and then make a folder and then copy that folder.
But you know, the state of your machine, whatever you edit in the clone that you open up, it saves it, right? So when you're making a clone, it's just a clone of a clone. Yeah,
Want to change it to the desktop?
if you wanna make another backup, that's fine.
I don't want.
Yeah, then you don't have to. But if your clone works just now, then it's fine. Yeah, you don't. So I'm just saying for those people who did clone.
I'll be right back. Okay, I should try it. I was thinking twice. Same password. I remember this.
Oh, okay.
So you're trying to copy, so when you did this right here, right, so it did the same. Yeah, so, no, in it. So, even though it is, got that. That's the last. I took my, so go here, that's how your file. And so if there's any space. Right in the. Things. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's the file. I'm just like, yeah, so that's really, I mean, take this out. So, this one, and then this one, so you will have all the countries on this in the media, and we're just gonna start all over. And then we have to start all over, but I didn't get the plan to see before. This is, I just noticed like, like all of the wrong steps. Because. No. No chance that I'm signing. Oh, but it's okay. Go back. Because it's gonna be tied into the language. The one I use, okay, now I'm gonna change from here to there, so I see these space that. Yeah, so. Other questions? Okay. So, and tell you, like, the owner. Is gonna be this part right here. Right, so, and then the power. That's how those are the sections. So the first part is the owner. So if we invite the first, and the blue, and then the speed, and that. So, yeah, down your name. Okay, we're doing okay? Any questions? Yeah. Yeah, so the next step is to start, like, you have to remember what you did as a prior.
Oh, it is important because I was telling you.
I'll take a couple
Why-
more questions.
why
and then
you
I'll
have
put
an
them
actual- I would- No, no, I don't, you see,
Yeah.
yeah, I installed in it. I got some already. I got Windows, I got Linux. So when I don't think I was in all that stuff. I don't know that. Yeah, you can download it, but I don't know, like in my case, I have 200 drive.
Create it now.
You can see what it is. Like, I want from my car, I use some of those. And the, $500. Linux.
Yeah.
So that way, then when we have something that is, I don't have to go, like, yeah, so I don't have to go, save it or something like that. And then, yeah, when there's a shoot thing.
Yeah, so all these folders, this, you wanna keep this one, like, you know, yeah, I did it in there. So, but
Oh, yeah.
here, that's a mount.
Oh, look
Yeah.
at my kid.
Ask Russ.
So let me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So-
Good, tell you,
so what happened is,
like in my case, when I
Right.
put this, I know this is
so
error,
when you select.
but I didn't know,
maybe
I have to check it till now, so.
Because it's gonna want to create a VDI. So what it did was it only back up the drive that where it's supposed to go. There's a way that you can actually access it. I'll show you later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and.
Yeah.
They actually show the error.
Yeah, so the universe is the open. That's the first onboarding, right? And then is the next part.
The error.
Yeah,
that the
so-
computer has.
Refers to the universe as the owner. So if you are a creator, in Windows, creator. And then, so it's read, write, and then read. And then you will see chmod, in Linux, there's only three permissions. read, write.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, concern?
Yeah, look, yeah, like I said, this is for the vehicle profile, like my actual computer. I got everything. So my, yeah, you see? Like I say. So this is the one I already submitted, it's called this in error. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, like I said, it might be because it has. access
Okay.
to that.
So sorry, there was a discrepancy. Chris pointed out to me that there was some stuff that was missing because on the 501, which is the prior version of your security class, right? They had changed up some sections. So I re-uploaded the notes. And I wanted to touch back on the notes to address some of the questions that came to me via email, office hours, and so on. Okay? So this is gonna give you a little bit more concept as some of you are still working through your lab, so you can work and listen.
What is this, the note?
Yeah, so I'm just going over some of the areas that was lacking in the video. So I just want to point out that for Security Plus, when you're looking at your options, make sure that you're looking for the keyword, because sometimes the scenario is very close, right? Especially with the multiple choice. So for number 10, right? So when I went through this, every time I talk about like, oh, is it really a security incident? And is it jeopardizing CIA, right? So this, right, it restarts frequently, but it's not really any form of attack. So a security incident is when a threat acts upon a vulnerability. So we have to think about like, oh, is it really a threat? We don't know exactly if it's like malfunctioning, if his laptop is running out of RAM. There are a lot of other issues. So this is not really a security incident. Server room door was open, but we don't really have an incident with the server, right? There was nothing, nobody really entered, it didn't say anything very specific, but you know for sure that C is an event. It's an incident because this is a threat, right? And it tapped into the vulnerability is that one of the user clicked on it basically, right? Lack of user training, okay? And then there was a question came in for number 12 on the assignment. So I want to explain this a little more so we can be very clear because this is going to come up on your certification. So in number 12, it asks you determine the type of control that is part of this action. And you're going to have something that's overlapping, but be very specific to your choice, right? So a company use digital lock entrances. That's easy. When we put locks to doors, right? This is going to be physical. And locks to doors deters, so that's deterrent, right? I think that's also on the updated notes. When you're using logs to identify breach, that's detective. It is a reactive approach. Detective control is just putting out fire, right? So logs are always going to be part of detection. It's already happened and you recorded it, okay? Third, a company requires all employees to attend biannual security training. This is part of operation, right? That they require that, and administrative control. So whenever that you deal with training, a user awareness program, requirement for the employee, that's part of administration, like security policy and so on. Shh, you guys. All right. Firewall rules allows you to filter, right? Who can come into your network or leaving your network. So that is really a technical control. And the key word here is this. How do I know if it's technical control or not? Well, it says configured and it says prevent, so prevention, right? So a lot of the times when you take certification, look for a specific keyword that indicates your option. And they can be very close in the answer, okay? I talked about virtualization in my video. We've used virtualization. Okay, so in the year, well, last year when I taught the class, I didn't really, for week 3, I think there was a holiday or some kind of event. So I think I'm gonna come back and do some exercise with you guys. And I wanna focus a little bit on recon. And we're going to come back to that, okay? So recon is very important in security. If you take CIS27B, ethical hacking, you're going to spend a good amount of time. And recon is about finding information, okay? So there are many ways that we can recon. We can Google someone or a company or a system. We can use tools, okay? So I spent last week talking to my class, my CIS41A class. So they spent some time to do the recon. And sometimes we find a lot, but then got nothing, right? You find a lot of information that's not useful, basically. And then you start all over again, okay? So recon is good, but it takes a lot of time. So if you want to be in this industry, you have to have the patience. No matter which area you go into, defending a network, attacking a network, doing forensic in a network, responding to an incident on a system, everything takes time. Okay, you ever try recovering your computer? How long does it take to recover your computer? It's a lot easier to back up, right? So recovering takes twice or 3 times as long compared to backup. If you back up 1 hour, just add 2, double or triple that. Yes. You okay? It should have a recovery. Is it a Word document? Yes. And then here. Is that the downloaded one or recently saved? Go to see on the options, click on option, there should be like, see if it recovered to a temp file. I think they removed the access here, but sometime it temp saved it. Okay, so let's talk about Windows command prompt real quick. Okay, so you got a lot of Linux. Well, not a lot, but a taste of Linux terminal. Okay. I'm gonna give you some Windows stuff now, and we're gonna use server virtual machine later. Okay, maybe next week. So let's do command prompt. So in Windows, CMD is command prompt. It looks like this. Let me increase the font. Okay. So now on the notes, it talks about ARP, and ARP stores information about your addresses, your system address. So when I do this, I'm going to get a list. Okay, I'm going to show you what this means. Anytime that your system connects to something, it has to say, this is who I am, and I'm connecting to this system. Okay, but on here, what you're going to see is you're going to see the internet address, which is your IP address, and a physical address, which is your MAC address, media access controller address. This is your physical address to your network interface card. But whenever you see F like this, it's a broadcast or 0, right? So this is an IP address, right? And so anytime that it's connecting to a website, a router, any kind of network, it's gonna say, this is the interface, this is the IP, and this is the MAC. Okay, so why is the MAC important in security? We filter by MAC, right? If you don't want people to connect to your wireless network, only add the MAC addresses that you want on. Everybody else, they can know the key and they won't be able to log in. That's how we can filter. That's called MAC filter. And it's specific to the system. It's ingrained onto your wireless adapter and your network interface adapter. Okay, can they spoof it? Sure. Right? But spoofing it, when it passes through different detection system, they have to keep covering it. It's kind of like you're wearing a mask, right? And when you pass through the detection system, you have to mask yourself. And then you go to the next system, you have to mask yourself. So they have script that they can mask it, but however, it's a lot more challenging. In security, it's not about stopping, it's about slowing down. Okay. There's never 100% security. If people tell you that, they are BS, right? It's about slowing people down who's trying to attack your network. So this is a way that we can look at, and whenever that we're connecting to a switch, it uses a physical address. Switch does not use MAC IP address unless it's level 3, 4, and 5 switches. Okay. Again, networking class is very important in security. It doesn't matter if you take 26 or 40. If you take 40A, that's a network plus. I teach to network plus. Okay. So ARP-A is important. Now, can they poison ARP? Sure. But in order to poison, they have to find out what that is. Okay. Chris, what did I just say? What's art poison, Chris? Art poison. So that's fine. Thank you for your help. ARP is a temporary, ARP cache is a storage location where it store all of that information, right? So they can take that and they can study it and they can modify it, right? So that way I can use it to impersonate, I can use it to be able to get my system to attack. So ARP-A, we want to be able to find information about our cache between the IP and the MAC. And we already did chmod. Okay. Let me see what else I want to show you. 1 second. Okay, so let's see. Command lines and tool. Okay, let's do a ping. I know some of you know this already. So I can do a ping 127.0.0.1. This is a loopback. I'm pinging myself, right? And if you successful, so this is a way that we know if the system is connected or not. See how it has the reply here? In Windows environment, there are 4 replies. When you do this in Linux, it's going to keep going on forever. Linux, when you want to ping a certain number of packets, you have to do a count, okay? Otherwise, it's just going to keep going, and keep going. So ping is a way that we can see if that system is connected. So basically, it's setting up one packet to the destination, which is itself. It's kind of like it sends it out and come back to itself, say, hey, are you alive? It says yes. One more, right? And 4 times it did that. So here it tells you that it sent 4 packets. So in a network environment, a packet has information about the system, who is it sending to, and where is it sending from. Think of it like you sending a package to your friend. It's like that, okay? Yes, that's right. So using the option, right, as Keith mentioned, is important, right? You can do a count, you can do a specific switch or option with your destination address. Okay. So when you ping at home, you're going to see 192.168.0.x. That's your typical router IP, unless you changed it. You can also ping a URL. The domain has an IP address, a public IP address that's tied to the name. It's kind of like how they register your driver license with your name, right? So on the system, it's really a driver license number, but you know you are associated with that driver license number or social security number. So every website is registered to an IP address. The internet itself is just IP addresses, right? The URL is really for the domain name is for the human. We don't go around and say, hey, connect to my website. It's 8.8.8.8. We don't go around talking about that, right? People are going to forget. So .com, the people who created all of these technology, they came up and they said, well, there got to be a better way for humans to really see the domain. And we'll talk about DNS, okay, and what kind of jeopardization that we can do to a DNS. ifconfig, deprecated, no longer used in Linux. So the book kind of is dated too, right? But that's the old way. Now you just use IP space address in Linux. Okay. All right, let's talk about netstat 2. So it's exactly what it means to do. It lists all the connections. Okay. How can I use this toward my advantage if I'm an attacker? And it takes a while to accumulate the statistic and the information. How can I use this toward? So if I come into your to your facility impersonating as a worker, I connect to your network. I can netstat to find out what kind of devices is my system connecting to, right? It has to pass through some form of network devices, right? See? Established, stated for the state connection. And then if I'm using application layer protocol like HTTP URL, right? I could see that, okay? So it tells me also my addresses locally and the destination. So we'll talk a little more about protocol. So this is my active connection for my system, right? So if you can find out how you, or what system you're connecting to, you can find out more. It's one step at a time.
So it's actually giving the IP addresses to the places all the computers are connected to,
No, my system,
just your system?
yeah. But there are ways that you can find out for other systems.
Teach me.
Well, that's a little bit of this class and another class and another class.
Everything.
So in the later classes, you're gonna see a lot of, in this class, we're gonna do some cool stuff. Starting next week, I'll introduce you to some tool, right? This is for educational purposes only. Dr. Nguyen do not teach you how to hack for a living to, illegally break system. We have to do it ethically. This closure, sign the dotted line, right? All right. So you notice, right? Sometimes it's closed weight like this because sometimes even though we make the request, it doesn't always respond. And we'll talk about HTTP, how it requests and reply and all of that. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit of NetStat. And this is on your notes. Okay. So now, depending on the OSs, it's slightly different or could be the same, right? For the command. This is called trace route. Do not call it tracer. Trace route, okay? In Windows, it's trace RT, but we call it trace route. So it's like, so when you do this, I should exit. So this is what happens when because I'm still connecting, so it's still trying to update me with the information. I'm just gonna kill tasks real quick. It's still gonna be slow. All right. So if we do trace RT and we would put in a website. So let's say if I do youtube.com like this. So what you're doing is you're following your traffic from your system out to the router, out to the world, and then to Google server, right, for YouTube, and then back, right? But in Windows, it's only gonna list a few, okay? So trace route, we're not gonna get all the detail, even though it tells you that it's supposed to list all the 30 hops. So it's like putting a camera on your car and send your car from home to school. It's gonna record every street, every highway, every corner that you turn all the way to school. It's exactly like that. But we're following the network traffic. So here I'm leaving RCCD router. And this is by practice, you see the .1 that's from the outside coming in. That's usually your edge router, right? And then it's gonna show the next. You see how I'm still slow because it's still NetStatting my stuff. And then, so when you're doing a trace route, expect it to be slower. It uses the same protocol as ping. But, so when we find, this is like, you're like, oh, cool. I can find how that system is connected, so is the attacker, right? But remember that certain tools are invasive and certain tools are passive. That means it's non-invasive. And if it's invasive, if you can see them, they can see you, okay? So that means that when you're trying to look at how you can attack a network to study that network, let's say that you're an ethical hacker, if you can see them, with the tool, they can see you. That means that their intrusion detection system is already seeing you and blocking you, okay? If they have all the measure in place. Now, if it's just wide open, right? Which is now not the case anymore. Back in the day, it would be. Then you can, it's open sesame all game. But it's not that easy. That's not why we get paid $200 an hour to do our job sometimes, right? So it's, the pay is really about your skill and how you can, and that comes with also experience and knowledge and how you hone your skill. Okay, so it tells you here that I'm following to this destination, and Google owns many, right? 8888 is also theirs, the whole 8 suite, right? And they also own other servers as they have many data center, many servers, many systems. So this is their YouTube one. Okay, it's when you read this is your domain, which is google.com, right? This is a child of it, a sub, and then a sub of it. As you know that they have, right, their Google and then their YouTube, and then they tap into other things, just like how Microsoft owns a bunch of different things. So you have either, you know, hierarchy structure, or you have partners and companies affiliation that will be like this. But this command prompt is only going to give you like 7 hops listing. Okay, so that's trace route. We talked about ARP cache already. Okay, ARP is the same in Windows and Linux. Okay, and then some of the command, I didn't show you how to do tail and lap, but you can try tail and head and logger. So when you take CIS25, it talks a little bit more about, you know, Linux as a history, and then, you know, their variation. But when you look at web server, a lot of them are Apache, which is Linux based. Linux use MySQL instead of Microsoft uses Microsoft SQL. That's for database. And then with that, you would use PHP, Perl, or Python, right? Python for web application, Perl for reporting, PHP for web development. Okay, but you can use JavaScript, and there are other, you know, languages and frameworks that you can apply. So this is just general. Okay. We talked about logs, and then for Windows logs. So in Windows, since we have time, I don't know if I can access it. I'm on their desktop, so it's always skeptical. So whenever that you need to find something, it's great that now you can search for things, right? At home, if you're using Windows Pro, let's see. Computer Management Console, we're gonna see some of this, but you're gonna use it on your virtual machine. So Computer Management Console gives you everything that you need to know about your computer, right? On the administration side, such as the users on your computer. Yeah, you can search for the user in that, but it's not gonna take you here. So whenever that you manage Windows 10 or 11, this is gonna be the area you should be in. And you have to be privileged to access this, okay? So what you can do is you can go to a thing called Event Viewer. This is where Windows keep its events, okay? And Windows logs are here. See? So search for Computer Management Console, right? Go to Event Viewer, and you can do that on your home computer. And then this tells you the type of logs. So I've broken it up to four main categories: your setup, your system, your security log, and your application. This is the area that we're interested in. This is what Windows classified it as security logs. But sometimes it could be system related, okay? Or it could be install related, or it could be app related. Now you can also manage other areas under this, right? But so when I look at the system, remember earlier we were looking at boot for Linux, right? So error shows like this. And then information, that's just like general information, and then warning. But let's look at one of the errors. You can double click it. And yes, you can pull the log files as group. But if you're looking at an incident that's related to this, right? I'm logged on as this user. This is the error. The error ID helps. And Microsoft has the link for that. Sometimes there's a solution, sometimes there isn't. Or sometimes it just tells you to update it, right? Okay. Any questions? So it tells you in general, like unable to start DCOM server, Microsoft, your phone, blah, 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 unavailable. So in audit, you have to go back and look. Okay. See? Now you can also create, import, export, look at properties, filter. Remember earlier we grep, right? In Linux, you can filter, but you can use command prompt too to do it. Okay. Event viewer in Microsoft is your friend, okay, for security. So if they ever interview you and ask you, how do you look at a security incident on a Windows system? Say, easy. Go to event viewer and this is how you do it. Computer management console, clicking on event viewer, or even you can search for event viewer. If you have privilege to access it, then there you go. And then I would look at security logs or system logs, depends on the type of event. You know, like, oh, okay, so you know how to use event viewer. That's the type of interview questions that you're gonna get. Okay, so for today, right, if you completed lab 1 or even last week, you should add CLI, Linux CLI on your resume, Ubuntu Linux CLI, right? So those little things, and if you don't, make a list of the things that you learn or have hands-on in this class. And then, you know, make the list of command that you had used. chmod, lsmod, do how to create logs. You know, those things, so later on you can practice or impress people that interview you. So later on, we're gonna start looking at your network data and also packet using packet capture. On your system, I have them install Wireshark. And if you ever do network monitoring, this is the thing to use, okay? It is free, and you can use your Wireshark to monitor your network, right? It is a network sniffer. It's gonna look for all the packets that's passed through. So here, because on the Alienware, there are 2 network adapters, the wireless and the wired, right? Same thing with some laptop. So you have to pick the adapter that you want to use, okay? And on the virtual machine, it's going to show you the VM adapter. It's going to create it like VBox or VMware, okay, depending on the product. So if I'm using Ethernet to capture, I simply select it. Okay, and then I just click the fin to start. We're gonna do a lab later on, and you can have this in Linux too. Not as pretty, right? This is really made for Windows. So this is all the connection. Earlier, Keith said, can you show me how to look at everybody? This is everybody. Wireshark, network sniffer, everybody. Okay,
What is that word?
Wireshark.
It's the one you were using for look for a picture last time.
Yeah, Wireshark also allows you to look at through the network for picture. I actually like using Network Miner for network forensic. Yeah, that for malware. Yeah. So Wireshark can be used in many ways, right? He was talking about in my CIS27 class, we use it for network forensic to look for picture file, but you can also use it to monitor your network or scan a network. So if you can use the sniffer to monitor your network, attacker can use the sniffer. So that's why I tell you, when you connect to a public wireless network, right, somebody can run this and they can scan, okay? And all they have to do is use a packet crafter to modify your traffic. It's not hard. So public wireless is a dangerous place, okay? When I was in Costa Rica, I had to do it. And I was like, oh, I couldn't use my Wi-Fi hotspot, or I have Verizon hotspot, and I was on the phone with them. I was like, can you please make sure that, but they don't have hotspot service out there for me. But yeah, I didn't want to use my smartphone as a hotspot. That also opens up issues. So yeah, but anyway. So this is how you can see everybody, and then we can stop, right? It's gonna go on forever. All the router, everything that my system connected to and other systems. Okay. And then you can categorize it, who's sending, who's receiving. Okay. And then we'll look at the packets later. More to come, more to come.
So there's no way to, defend against, like, public Wi-Fi?
Public Wi-Fi, well, it's kind of like, that there could be a bad accident that could happen, or a shooting or whatever, and you just walk right into it, right? So there's a high chance. It doesn't always mean that you are gonna get attacked or something's gonna happen to you, but it's just, it's a higher risk. Okay, there are scanners that they can also scan like packets like this, and yeah, like what he was saying, when we do forensic, we're gonna see, oh, that's an image coming through, right? That's an image file that's coming through, like somebody's uploading a picture on their, I don't know, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, right? So we can see, and then, so using multiple tools, it's very clear.
So they would just basically be taking your information, tearing it apart and seeing what they could get out of it, right? They
Oh,
could
yeah.
be like manipulating, or would they, right?
So that is really so recon is about gathering the information, right? To really build the next stage. So whether they pursue the attack or not is really whether they want to proceed. Now, on the ethical realm is that you would sign for your engagement before you start doing any of this, because it is illegal to start attacking without people permission. Yeah. So, you gotta make sure that they allow you in written document. Yeah, to protect yourself, because computer crime, 25 years in prison plus or a lifetime.
But like, most people are just, they're just usually looking for like your personal information, right?
Sometimes, for financial, sometimes for, could be personal information, could be design, could be data is money. It could be other things, to find vulnerability to take down system. Most likely, so if you're looking at like, utility grid, stuff like that, that's just flaw in the system that they're gonna look for. Yeah, and that's part of recon.
You just
Becomes-
don't pay for anything on the internet, on
Well, we cannot stop living, right? But we have to be a little bit more cautious in the things that we do. Anytime that you use it, you are at risk. Whether it's high or low, you take that risk, right? Yeah, don't pay for stuff on public Wi-Fi, right? Do not connect to Walmart, McDonald's, public Wi-Fi and start paying for your credit card.
Anytime you connect to the internet.
Your home internet, if you know how to protect it, I think it's good. You should use VPN, you should use extra precaution, just because, it doesn't mean that you are not susceptible to it. It's just, remember what I said, it's about slowing down.
I saw the movie Snowden and they like went right straight through that stuff.
Well, I know that Hollywood makes everything seem very easy, so. But it takes years or months and days. Okay, so. We'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about this, but for security management system, this is a way that we can centralize a lot of things. Now, a lot of times you're gonna see that it's AI apply. It's gonna look for behavior, it's gonna sense out, so it's gonna build and collect data, and then it's gonna adjust based on the operation of the organization. So it's also very good at pattern analysis. So if it's an unknown, right? Because right now for us is the unknown. That's really scary because is it a malware? Is it a person? Is it, so anything outside of the known, the system is gonna say, oh, this is unknown, and it's gonna list it. So having understanding of the trends. So the analysts, right? My students always say, oh, what's the difference between the specialist and the analyst? The classes are kind of similar. Yeah, you're gonna need to have that knowledge, but the analyst side is about correlation, about understanding what had happened and how you can correlate that to the solution, right? Integrating. So that's a little bit higher on the level. Sometimes you have to come in as a specialist or even lower than that to work your way up. And it's good experience for you to really build out your knowledge. Okay. So learning networking is important. We're going to talk about ports. All systems connect through a value port. So think of ports as like windows to your house, right? And every window is a little different for a different type of service. Or these are small little doors that people can walk through. Some doors are for certain people or certain traffic. So logs allows us to really look at what is open for what kind of service. And whenever you see protocol, it's always related to service. And when there's a service, likely there's a connection. And if there's a connection, there's a port. Okay. So the first thing that we should always do is to close out the unused ports or unnecessary ports. Okay. It's kind of like, you know, possible entrance to your house that somebody can break in, just close that out the door and the window that someone can break in. Okay. So there's your Windows logs, and then there's Linux logs. It lives here. I think this is on your assignment, likely will be on your quiz. But make sure we know the type of logs, even if we don't use it in this class, but you might see it in the future. Any question? Okay. So, I had also extended assignment 2. Okay, I did post a video that was recorded last time when I taught the class. So watch the video and then look at the notes. If you don't have textbook, read the notes. Okay, it's gonna go over authorization, authentication, and accounting. Okay. AAA, whatever you do, remember 2 things. CIA and AAA, what they are. Likely you're gonna see it on certification, and likely you're gonna hear about it when you interview. Okay. So authorize, account, and authenticate. And we use multi-factor for authentication, which now you guys use here at school, which is great. Okay. Okay, so go through, watch the video, complete the assignment. What we're gonna do next week, I actually revised the lab for next week. So we're gonna talk a little bit more about attacks. It's gonna be fun, okay? So I put 2029. I was up till 3 this morning, so sorry. Sometimes I type things like. So we're gonna use a little bit of the server side to look at the authentication a little bit for you guys to see, and then I'm thinking, because I wrote something for network management. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about Wireshark and managing network a little better. And then if I have time, part C is gonna be like a little attack, but we'll see. So, but attack is only fun in Linux. But we will have more. So I have one for the Kali tools and stuff like that. So there's if I don't get in unit 3, I will hit it on unit 4. So you guys, I haven't taught ethical hacking here at RCCD, but maybe next semester I'll do it with the forensic class. All right, so let's do attendance. You're welcome to stick around until 8+ to finish up whatever your lab is for today. Make sure we complete our quizzes, right? I do allow late quizzes. It's 3 attempts. So if you don't like your first score, go again, right? It's only 20 points. In the next one, you have a review game, so it's gonna help you. And then work on your in-class assignment for unit 2. I saw some of you submitted that already. Watch the video and then post the assignment. Okay. And then I will also link this video to unit 1 lab and also video page. So in case you need to watch it again, you can. It takes about an hour or more to convert on YouTube, and then I link it back on YouTube. Okay, so let me stop share and then let me stop recording and end. Let me close this.